lorry in Essex. The addresses in County Armagh are thought to be linked to the truck driver, who's been questioned on suspicion of murder. Police are working to identify the bodies. Steve Valdez-Simmons from Amnesty International feels a crackdown on trafficking may have led to this.
If you close down routes and make relatively safe options impossible or much harder, you only drive people who don't have real choices but to try to make a journey onto much more dangerous routes, and of course more tragedies result.
US President Donald Trump is lifting sanctions against Turkey after it complied with the ceasefire agreement with Kurdish forces in Syria. Trump says it shows his decision to withdraw US forces from northern Syria has paid dividends.
The sanctions will be lifted unless something happens that we're not happy with. This was an outcome created by us, the United States, and nobody else.
Meanwhile, the move was criticized by Republicans and his own envoy to the Syria crisis. And for the first time in more than a decade, someone not named Benjamin Netanyahu will have a chance to form and lead Israel's next government. Bloomberg's Yaakov Ben-Amela has all the details.
Former military chief Benny Gantz was tasked Wednesday with cobbling together a ruling coalition. He has 4 weeks to break the political stalemate that has gripped Israel the past 6 months, which include 2 inconclusive national elections. Should Gantz fail, chances are high that Israel could find itself in yet another round of elections. In Tel Aviv, Kobe Ben-Melech, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg. Anna.
Leanne, thank you. Now with the morning sports news, here's William Essler.
Chelsea manager Frank Lampard is urging his players not to get carried away by their winning run. A 1-0 victory over Ajax in the Champions League last night made it 6 wins in a row in all competitions. Lampard wants his squad to stay focused and prepare for each game professionally.
I said to the players before the game, 5 wins in a row is really dangerous. It's really dangerous because it can make you sloppy, it can make you switch off and think everything's fine. 6 wins is even more dangerous. So that's the message of Burnley.
Elsewhere, Liverpool made it back-to-back wins in Europe's Premier competition with a 4-1 win at Genk. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain scored twice, with Sadio Mane and Mo Salah getting the others. Manchester United boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer feels Harry Kane is one of the best strikers in the world. He was asked about the English forward after former United midfielder Roy Keane said the club should sign him to solve their goal-scoring problems. United are away to Partizan Belgrade in the Europa League tonight.
Thanks very much to William for that. Now to Pete Fox for US Sports.
The magical run for the Nationals continues after they annihilated the Astros in Game 2 of the World Series in Houston by a score of 12-3. The series now shifts back to D.C., where Washington sits 2 shy of their first ever World Series championship. From the night on the NBA scoreboard, a record-breaking night for Kyrie Irving in his debut for the Nets. He posted 50, but it wouldn't be enough for the Nets to get past the T-Wolves. They lose it in overtime, 127-126. Wizards fall in Dallas to the Mavericks by 8. Spurs edging the Knicks 120-111. And the Sixers take care of the Celtics in Philadelphia 107-93. I'm Pete Fox. That's your Bloomberg NBC Sports Update.
Thanks for that, Pete. Still ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. We'll talk about the German debt break rule. On the last appearance of Mario Draghi at the ECB as president, that makes sense to catch up on that story. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
No company wants to be involved in an international dispute. But when disagreements arise, you need expertise at your side. Take a closer look at ICDR, the International Center for Dispute Resolution. Backed by the longevity and strength of the American Arbitration Association, the ICDR is the world's leading provider of cross-border dispute resolution services, handling more cases than any other institution. Find out why global expertise matters. Visit ICDR.org.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Rishad Salamat.
Let's get analysis of what we can expect from Indian equities. Sayan Mukherjee is Nomura, head of Indian equity research. Quite a state at the moment, the economy there in India. And equities are essentially holding their own. Question is, why? And where do they go next?
Yeah, it's been quite a challenging time as far as the economy is concerned. The economic growth has surprised everyone on the downside. Consistently over the last 4 quarters, the analyst expectations have not been met. And as we look at some of the high-frequency data, we don't see a revival immediately. So this quarter, the quarter ending September, can also record a weak data. So I think there are economic growth challenges in the near term. However, I think there has been a policy response. The government has reacted, and it appears that growth is a priority there. As you know, some steps have been taken, like corporate tax rate cuts. We could see more monetary stimulus going forward. And importantly, some of the other macro parameters which are important for India, for instance, crude oil and commodities are behaving well.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings.
This is Bloomberg.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg's European headquarters in London, I'm Danny Berger with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. We're seeing equities in Europe get off to a very strong start. Basically, every single regional index is higher in Europe. You have the Euro Stoxx 50 up 0.2%, FTSE up 0.6%, France, DAX, Spain, you name it, all higher today. Now, that contrasts with the S&P 500 futures, which has just barely changed, up 3 basis points. But the real gains coming from NASDAQ futures, up 0.3%. We had some big tech earnings coming out of the U.S. yesterday. Microsoft beating expectations. We also saw Tesla doing better as well. And we get Amazon soon as well. So that's helping NASDAQ futures do better. But that bright equity picture really contrasts what's happening in other risk assets like commodity currencies. We're seeing the Aussie dollar and Kiwi dollar lower today by as much as 0.5%. So that really shows where weakness in regional manufacturing is adding to the global growth concerns. Elsewhere, we are seeing the Swedish assets have big moves. 2 years up 8 basis points. The krona up 0.5%. That's after Riksbank said it sees grounds for a December rate hike. Oil pairing some of its gains after surging the most yesterday since the attacks on the Saudi Arabia oil fields. That follows a surprise decline in U.S. crude stockpiles. Also some global growth concerns creeping in there as well. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Leanne Gerrans with more on what's going on around the world.
Good morning, Danny. Parts of Northern California have gone dark in the first stage of a mass blackout that could eventually leave more than 1.5 million people without power. Utility PG&E is cutting service to customers in an attempt to keep its power lines from sparking wildfires amid huge winds. The blackout is said to spread overnight to other parts of the San Francisco Bay Area. Russian President Vladimir Putin has courted more than 40 leaders of African nations in Sochi at the first ever Russian-Africa America summit. Putin hailed what he called the continent's enormous potential for growth and negotiated deals to tap its riches, including diamonds, uranium and oil. Russia is following China in expanding its influence in the region. And finally, in London, the Underdog has become the world's first bar to install AI facial recognition technology. This is to help staff see who is next in line and avoid queue jumpers. The software is developed by firm DataSpar Q. Due to data protection laws here in the UK, the Underdog must obtain consent from all customers in order to use that tech. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
It is 9:20 in the city. Time to check in with Bloomberg Opinion. And today we go to Germany because we want to talk about German debt. We're joined by opinion editor Andreas Kluth, who's joining us to discuss the column Germany's Debt Break. That rule is an unnecessary drag, according to the editors this morning. So let's talk about that with Andreas. Andreas, good to have you with us. Remind us how significant this debt break is in Germany, because other countries in Europe don't have the same mechanism necessarily. So what is this German debt break exactly?
Actually, some other countries do, and some other countries are copying it. The debt break was introduced a decade ago exactly. It was a constitutional amendment, and it's both a federal and at some of the state level governments. It's in the constitutions that the states must run, except for absolute emergencies and natural disasters and stuff, must not run budget deficits at all, and the federal government must only run the tiniest budget deficit if it's absolutely necessary, and that's a big constraint, obviously.
It's a big constraint. It's not been there all that long then. That's interesting. I hadn't realised that, Andreas, that it was such a recent invention. Why is there such pressure on Germany now to ditch the debt break? And do you think it's a realistic possibility?
It's realistic. It's become less unrealistic because almost many very high-profile economists and even the main employers organization in Germany has called for loosening the brake or getting rid of it or rewriting it, but it is a constitutional amendment. You'd need 2/3. A lot would have to happen. The main party, the Angela Merkel's center-right party, is still against it. It's sort of a totem for it. I mean, this sort of savings culture and anti-debt culture, by the way, the German word for debt is very etymologically similar to that for guilt. I mean, it is very deep in Germany, and it's not a vote winner at the moment, but the pressure that you described is coming from outside of Germany, from the ECB especially, from the IMF, the OECD, from Brussels, from everybody who's saying, look, we've run out of monetary policy tools to get the economy going. It's time for you to spend because your interest rates are negative. You could get paid to borrow and spend, and it would help everybody.
And so there is this pressure, as you say, coming externally, and we'll see whether we hear more of that pressure from Mario Draghi as he makes his last appearance today in Frankfurt as ECB president. But there's a halfway house then, perhaps, Andreas, that maybe might find appeal, might find support in Berlin, something to do with changing the way that the debt break works. For example, excluding investments and focusing and allowing that to happen away from the debt break, if you like.
Well, that would be sort of our view as the editorial board is that get rid of it completely. But we're aware there are many other debt breaks in the world. All the U.S. states, except for Vermont, have a sort of debt break. However, over there, you have at the federal level nothing, so you can have a fiscal policy for the nation. Now here, yes, as you said, let's say they don't want to get rid of it completely for political reasons, then at least exempt investments. In other words, don't count investments the same way you count welfare spending, so that you can borrow and invest, and then that could take care of a lot of the problem.
And what kind of appetite for change do you think there really is, Andreas? We talk to a lot of guests and they talk about the need for fiscal stimulus across Europe, but they also point out that it's German stimulus that is needed, but not necessarily in Germany.
Correct. And there's a lot of analysis going on. Would German stimulus even help, or whom would it help in Europe? I mean, we want it to arrive in certain places and it wouldn't. But I have to be, the pessimistic about this. In Germany itself, it's almost zero. I mean, there are some, economists and specialists calling for stimulus, but very few. I mean, there's absolutely no political, capital to be gained from calling for fiscal expansion in Germany.
Interesting one to watch then, whether there does actually develop any appetite to change this debt break or not. Thank you so much for joining us then, Bloomberg opinion editor, Andreas Kluth. You can read more on this and other stories from Bloomberg Opinion at bloomberg.com/opinion or on the terminal by typing OPIN-GO. When we come back, we're going to talk about the car sector, a surprise profit from Tesla. How is that shaking up the sector? Also news out of Daimler. This is Bloomberg.
With the Bloomberg Business of Sports Report, I'm Michael Barr. China's CCTV is sticking to its pledge to drop NBA coverage 2 weeks after a league official's Twitter post roiled its business in the mainland. The state broadcaster sports channel, which averaged 25 million viewers per game during previous NBA finals, did not air the opening games, the first time it has not covered regular season games in at least a decade. Former basketball star Shaquille O'Neal is weighing in. O'Neal believes Houston Rockets GM Daryl Morey has the right to support pro-democracy groups in Hong Kong.
Daryl Morey was right. Whenever you see something wrong going on anywhere in the world, you should have the right to say, that's not right, and that's what he did. But again, when it comes to business, sometimes you have to tiptoe around things, but again, they understand our values, we understand our values, and here we have the right to speak, especially with the social media. We're going to say whatever we want to say, when we want to say it.
And that is a Bloomberg Business of Sports Report. I'm Michael Barr.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance? Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Something remarkable happens when just the right elements come together. Ideas with technology, data with inspiration, investors with solutions. This is what Invesco does every day, because they believe the possibilities of life and investing are greater when we come together. Invesco. Let's invest in greater possibilities together. To learn more, visit Invesco.com/together. Invesco Distributors, Incorporated.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
People have always told me I can be a bit wary of modern things.
Very true.
So, when Jane suggested selling the house with purple bricks, I weren't happy.
No, you weren't.
You see, I don't like technology. I don't like the internet. I don't like moving house. I don't like their adverts. I don't like purple.
Luckily, I don't listen to him, and our estate agent, Emma, were perfect. She gave us her actual mobile number. She was always available.
Fine, they were great. Still don't like purple.
Purple bricks. You'll be totally sold.
Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months. Viewing services cost extra. See website for more details.
We've been together 3 years. We both love travel, and luckily we've got the same taste in music. Next year, we're planning a big road trip, and my wife's coming too. It'll be nice. The three of us don't do enough together. We know how much your Mini means to you. That's why Mini Service offers an array of convenient options and allows you to book online anytime at mini.co.uk. Because we love your Mini almost as much as you do. Search Mini Service. Who's in? T's and C's apply, subject to availability, participating retailers only.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Carl's All Change Casserole.
So, Chloe walks in from school, tears all over her face.
Daddy,
She says,
I don't want to eat animals anymore.
I blooming love my meat, but not as much as I love my little girl. That's why we've made some changes to our old favourite, sausage casserole. Now with meat-free Cumberlands, but still with my magic touch, a dollop of mango chutney. Just as tasty as it used to be.
Better, actually.
Make your own with the new Tesco Plant Chef range. Food Love Stories. Brought to you by Tesco.
This autumn, as the nights draw in, beat the cold with Now TV.
Curl up with the latest blockbusters, including Bohemian Rhapsody and Hotel Mumbai. Plus, with over 40 new movies added each month, from Aquaman to How to Train Your Dragon 3, Now TV's got you covered, wherever you feel like watching. Get cozy with the latest and best movies for just $11.99 a month. Search Now TV today. 18 plus month passes auto-renews unless cancelled. Terms apply.
Broadcasting live to London on DAB digital radio, to New York, Bloomberg 1130, to Washington DC, Bloomberg 99.1, to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1, to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Anna Edwards. You're listening to Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And I'm Matt Miller, back in the Frankfurt Bureau. I was over at the ECB. I'm going to go back over there in a little bit, Anna, because Mario Draghi, thank you so much, Mario Draghi is going to give his final press conference as president of the ECB, and who would want to miss that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll be there for all the reviewing of the tenure and also the talk about the path forward. Let's talk about what's going on in the markets right now. Let's check the data. We do that every 15 minutes on Bloomberg Radio. Stocks in Europe making gains this morning, so up by 0.3% on the Stoxx 600. The FTSE 100 up by 0.6%. Before the start of trade, it looked at it as if the London market might be a laggard today. That's not turned out to be the case. The CAC 40 up by 0.25% and the DAX up by 0.4%. So earnings season in full flow now in the US and in Europe. So we had in the US some positivity. If you believe the estimates and the beats that we get, then the S&P 500 went above the 3,000 level yesterday, and we've seen so far 80% of the S&P beating. I know some people think those figures are manipulated, so I won't linger on them. But in terms of US futures,
massaged
is the word you use. Absolutely.
I think the average is 76%. So it's always about 3/4 or more.
And we had a very interesting conversation with John Rowe a little bit earlier on, and he was talking about the independent statistics that are available on profits, NIPA. I'm going to look those up later because I don't think we've talked about them enough, and you contrast those with what you get from S&P earnings late cycle. Anyway, I have diverged into interesting territory, but it's not helping us get through the data. US futures fairly flat, apart from NASDAQ futures, which point higher, Matt, because we got the Microsoft numbers last night, and the sales number looked good there. The oil price is retreating a little, but we saw a very strong gain in yesterday's session on some US data. So that's the background, that's the context on that one. The dollar is fairly flat. The pound has been moving around a little this morning. Was up, now down just a touch, 129 or so. It flirts with the 129 level, down 0.1% as the EU keeps Boris Johnson waiting on the extension request that he didn't make, but Parliament made, of course.
Yeah, they sometimes they posture as if they're not going to give an extension. But of course,
it's all about the length of it, isn't it? There's some contentious. Some people are suggesting just November, and others are saying no, end of January.
Well, in any case, earnings season has been pretty interesting lately, especially in the autos sector. After two profit warnings over the last year, Daimler's third quarter earnings before interest and taxes beat analyst forecasts as sales for Mercedes jumped. Meanwhile, the case for electrification got a boost as Tesla posted a surprise profit, sending those shares more than 20% higher in late trading. So massive gains for Tesla. Daimler, no slouch. I think Daimler is currently trading up, let me just check here, 4.8%, so doing pretty well. Also, Bloomberg senior editor for global business in our Berlin bureau, Benedict Kamel, joins to talk about what's going on. Benny, is it just that the worst is behind us for the automakers, or have both of these companies drastically cut costs to make money?
Well, in Daimler's case, we're looking at a company that really has tested investors' nerves in the last couple of months. This is a company that had two really rapid succession profit warnings. So today, to not have a profit warning, to at least stick to your goals, that was seen as good news. Anything that's not radically bad news in this case was good news. And as you said, Matt, the shares are up. This is a company with a fairly new CEO, Ola Källenius, who is Swedish, but has spent most of his time at Daimler in Germany. And And he is now applying the axe. He's saying we need to cut costs, we need to get leaner, we need to think about what we produce, whether we have too many cars, too many programs. We need to look at the broader business, and that probably also includes the heavy trucks business, which incidentally is the world's largest. And that's a business that didn't do particularly well this quarter. They actually had to scale back their expectations slightly. So it's a bit of a mixed bag on the Daimler side. They maintained their forecast. The trucks business wasn't doing that well, and the cost cuts are coming. You could look at it half, glass half full, half empty, but clearly investors have chosen to look at the glass half full.
And so the cost side of things seems to be the focus now. And I noticed that JP Morgan has said some interesting things about cash flow, how the third quarter cash inflow is providing relief for the stock. And cash makes me think of Tesla, because that always used to be the story. And all of a sudden we're talking profits at Tesla. Why the surprise profit then, Benny, from the US electric car maker?
That's certainly a word you don't hear very often in connection with Tesla, profit and cash flow, positive free cash flow. And that really, as Matt said in his intro, really ignited the shares up more than 20%. Really across the board, very positive set of numbers there, and a very upbeat Elon Musk. He sent out a tweet late in the day yesterday, sort of with bullet points of everything that they achieved. So that, their Gigafactory in Shanghai, that's doing well. It's up and running. The Model Y is ahead of schedule. Their solar business, business you really haven't heard that much about lately, that seems to be sort of on the mend. And the Model 3 has turned a corner, and they're making money again, and that is really something that investors had hoped for. The question with Tesla always is, how sustainable is it? Is this sort of a blip? Is it a quarter, and then we're back to sort of bad behavior where things don't go that well? If he can maintain this, it's great news for Elon Musk, and the flip side is bad news for the Europeans, who are trying to get into that electric market that still is very much cornered by Elon Musk and Tesla.
Indeed, but they're making some headway. We see an electric SUV out from Audi, and the ID.3 coming out soon.
Correct.
From Volkswagen. Benny, thanks so much for joining us. Benedict Kamel there out of our Berlin bureau covering the auto sector for us. Let's get over now to Leanne Gerrans for more global news headlines. Leanne?
Good morning, Matt. Let's start with Brexit. EU ambassadors have agreed they should accept the UK's request for a third extension to the Brexit process, but are said to be split over how long to grant. The French are pushing for a tight deadline of October the 15th, while many other countries want to permit the 3 months the UK officially asked for. Johnson was forced to request an extension after he failed to win the backing of lawmakers in time for October the 31st deadline. Staying in the UK, 2 houses have been searched as part of an investigation into the deaths of 39 people found in a lorry in Essex. The addresses in County Armagh thought to be linked to the truck driver, who's been questioned on suspicion of murder. Police are working now to identify those bodies. Crossing over to Hong Kong, retailers and hotels are in an increasingly desperate struggle to actually stay afloat. Bloomberg's Eric Lamb says they are resorting to some creative measures to keep customers coming as ongoing protests stretch to a 21st straight week.
A series of relief measures from the Hong Kong government over the past week has targeted groups from the working class to construction workers, taxi drivers, and travel agencies. But retailers and hotels have been largely left in the cold. For those who are still willing to shop and spend on Hong Kong streets, there are some cheap deals to be had. Douglas Young, CEO of Hong Kong lifestyle and fashion chain Goods of Desire, describes it as a, quote, life and death situation. In Hong Kong, Eric Lamb, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
And in Botswana, people voted peacefully in elections yesterday. Results are expected in the next few days, and opinion polls show President Mogawitsi Masisi retaining power. Bloomberg's Mike Cohen has more.
Botswanans voted peacefully in elections yesterday that pitted President Mogawitsi Masisi and his Botswana Democratic Party against an opposition alliance that included his predecessor Ian Khama's Botswana Patriotic Front. The two men fell out over Masisi's decision to lift a hunting ban and fire some of Khama's key allies. In Cape Town, Mike Cohen, Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Anna.
Thanks very much for that, Leanne. Now with your morning sports news here in Europe, here's William Essler.
Chelsea manager Frank Lampard is urging his players not to get carried away by their winning run. A 1-0 victory over Ajax in the Champions League last night made it 6 wins in a row in all competitions. Lampard wants his squad to stay focused and prepare for each game professionally.
I said to the players before the game, 5 wins in a row is really dangerous. It's really dangerous because it can make you sloppy, it can make you switch off and think everything's fine. 6 wins is even more dangerous. So that's the message of Burnley.
Elsewhere, Liverpool made it back-to-back wins in Europe's Premier competition with a 4-1 win at Genk. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain scored twice, with Sadio Mane and Mo Salah getting the others. Manchester United boss Ole Gunnar Solskjaer feels Harry Kane is one of the best strikers in the world. He was asked about the English forward after former United midfielder Roy Keane said the club should sign him to solve their goal-scoring problems. United are away to Partizan Belgrade in the Europa League tonight.
All right, let's get the U.S. sports report now. For that, we go to Pete Fox. Pete?
The magical run for the Nationals continues after they annihilated the Astros in Game 2 of the World Series in Houston by a score of 12-3. The series now shifts back to D.C., where Washington sits 2 shy of their first ever World Series championship. From the night on the NBA scoreboard, a record-breaking night for Kyrie Irving in his debut for the Nets. He posted 50, but it wouldn't be enough for the Nets to get past the T-Wolves. They lose it in overtime, 127-126. Wizards fall in Dallas to the Mavericks by 8. Spurs edging the Knicks 120-111. And the Sixers take care of the Celtics in Philadelphia 107-93. I'm Pete Fox. That's your Bloomberg NBC Sports Update.
Thanks very much for that, Pete. So coming up on Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, we'll talk Brexit, we'll talk sterling with the latest Brexit developments in mind. Callum Pickering, senior economist at Berenberg, joins us next. This is Bloomberg.
Okay, kids, Dad's gonna teach you how to dance. First, spread your feet apart. Then, pump your knee, nod your head, shake your hips, and bite your lip ever so slightly. Now, with one hand in the air, point at people with the other hand. I call that the rock star.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now, make a face like it just smells something bad.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
As Ben Franklin said, taxes are one of the certainties of life. Tax reform and the Wayfair decision have brought opportunities, surprises, and challenges to corporate taxpayers. New and complex regulations such as GILTI and FDII mean intercompany transactions, transfer pricing, and business combinations need to be reevaluated. Companies also face additional state sales and income tax exposure. What worked in the past may not work today. EisnerAmper can help. That's a certainty. Visit EisnerAmper.com/tax certainty.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills, the kind of skills that companies need to build real products. and the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
This is Carol Masser.
And I'm Jason Kelly. Join us today at 2 for Bloomberg Business Week.
And Jason, we've got a favorite guest of the show, William O'Neill investment strategist Randy Watts. He is back. He's going to be focusing on dividend-paying stocks. And then, of course, we've got tech earnings. They'll continue. We'll hear from Intel, Twitter, and Amazon all reporting after the closing bell.
Bloomberg Business Week today starting at 2 on Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Rich is just a really, really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Markets, headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg's European headquarters in London, I'm Anne-Marie Horderm with this Bloomberg Radio Business Flash. Today is all about earnings and central banks. We've had a strong start to the European equities this morning, tracking their Asian peers to the upside. Stoxx 600 up nearly 0.4%, alongside all major national gauges across the region are in the green. We've had a host of upbeat corporates like Daimler. That seems to be helping investors forget about worries of economic growth, losing momentum. Also, we did have a data miss in terms of manufacturing. One stock I am looking at particular, though, Nokia. On the other hand, that one is plunging down some 20% as they cut their guidance for this year and next. If the earning narrative wasn't enough for you in Europe, we also have the European Central Bank have their rate decision out today, alongside 5 other rate decisions in the region. ECB, of course, the most anticipated. Mario Draghi's final policy meeting. Ahead of that, Euro trading 111.26, barely moving. And we do have bonds pretty steady. In commodities this morning, I'm looking at oil. It's cooling after a massive spike yesterday, so it's down 0.7% on Brent crude, but we're still above $60 a barrel, and this follows yesterday's surprise decline in U.S. stockpiles. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash, and here's Leanne Garens with more on what's going on around the world. Good morning, Leanne.
Good morning, Anne-Marie. President Trump is lifting sanctions against Turkey after it complied with a ceasefire agreement with Kurdish forces in Syria. Trump says it shows his decision to withdraw U.S. forces from northern Syria has paid dividends, but the move was criticized by Republicans and his own envoy to the Syria crisis. Google has dismissed employee claims that it is developing an internal surveillance tool to monitor workers' attempts to organize protests and discuss labor rights. Employees say they discovered a new tool from the custom Google Chrome browser installed on all workers' computers. Google says the claims are categorically false, and the tool is a pop-up reminder about how to use the calendar. And finally, it's possibly the most expensive parking space anywhere in the world. A parking spot in central Hong Kong is sold with a price tag of almost $1 million. The jaw-dropping sum is an illustration of the gap between the ultra-rich and just ordinary people. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Leanne Gerrans. This is Bloomberg Matt.
Leanne, thanks very much for that. Now, coming up next, our colleagues in the U.S. are getting ready for Bloomberg Daybreak in New York and Washington, D.C. Let's check in with Amy Morris to see what's ahead out of, I was going to say our nation's capital, but of course I'm in Frankfurt right now. Amy, what's going on in the U.S.?
We'll be whoever's capital you want us to be, Matt. Thanks so much. We begin with earnings. Tesla shares surging. The electric car maker reining in expenses, posting its first profit in almost a year. And also in the UK, Boris Johnson, I know you've heard about this, waiting for the European Union's verdict on whether to grant the UK a third Brexit extension. EU ambassadors, they did agree that they'd accept the request. They just don't know how long they're going to have to wait. They couldn't settle on how long they are going to extend. And it is a swan song for European Central Bank President Mario Draghi, whose vow to do whatever it takes is seen as a turning point in the Eurozone's crisis. Draghi presiding over his very last policy meeting amid opposition to a stimulus package that will be all part of his legacy. We'll be talking about that and other issues with MUFG European Head of Global Markets Research, Derek Halpenny. That is just ahead.
All right. Amy, thanks very much for that. Bloomberg Daybreak then is up next if you're listening on Sirius XM. If you're listening on London DAB digital radio, you'll hear Bloomberg Surveillance.
Let's pick up where you left off with Amy there, or at least one of the stories she was mentioning, and that was around Brexit, Matt, because we're joined now in the studio by Callum Pickering, senior economist at Berenberg, and I want to talk about what's going on with Brexit. Callum, my favourite quote of the morning, the Bulgarian Prime Minister, Boyko Borisov, said, there's no chance that we don't give them a chance, so there's no chance that we don't extend. He says, we'll postpone and postpone and postpone, and we'll keep on like that for another 90 to 100 years, is what the Bulgarian Prime Minister said. I mean, there's a serious point there, which is that the EU does not want to be blamed for a no-deal Brexit. They've always said that, and so that's why people assume there will be an extension. But the length of extension really will dictate the path from here, won't it? Because it has to be to the end of January. It has to be longer than just mid-November if we're going to get a general election.
Yeah, I think the EU's issue is to be as neutral as possible, and the inclination, therefore, would be simply to accept the UK's request for a January the 31st extension. My hunch is that what the EU will stress is, if you get this sorted, you can leave a bit earlier. So it's really down to Boris Johnson. What does he want to do next? What does his team want to do?
And in the Ben Act, there was the provision for that as well. It said, you take the extension they offer you, but you can go earlier so Parliament would be on board with that.
Oh, yeah.
If there's a deal.
Boris Johnson and his team have managed very, very well, actually, to control the rhetoric here, to say that actually the EU's decision on the length of the extension determined what happened in the UK. I mean, that's complete nonsense. What happens in the UK is really up to number 10. The options are either try to get Parliament to pass this Brexit deal quickly. It seems as if the Eurosceptic wing of the party and the One Nation Conservatives are in favour of that, but in and around Mr Johnson's team in number 10, they seem to want to push for a general election. My bet would be that, actually, if you have an election before Brexit is sorted, the Conservatives risk losing a little to the Lib Dems and to the Brexit Party that both have strong views on Brexit, whereas if you can get Parliament to pass this deal, I think Boris actually has the numbers. The election thereafter, Boris would be riding so high on the back of the Brexit victory that he probably could expect to win handsomely. So my hunch is the logic says we get the deal through first and then the election comes, and this is a little grandstanding by Boris to try and amp up the pressure on Parliament to pass the deal.
So you're giving a lot of credit to number 10 Downing Street. It seems to me that Parliament has been blocking literally everything that comes forward and offering nothing in its place. Do you think that they are? Do you not expect them to amend Johnson's deal to the point where it's unrecognizable and he won't want to pass it?
Johnson always faces that risk, but if it gets to that, then you can simply go for the election route, but at least try, while it seems to be the case that in principle Parliament is supporting this deal, to see if you can get it through. The key dynamic here is actually the Labour Party. So officially Labour want an election so long as a hard Brexit is off the table, but actually there are huge internal divisions. You're probably looking at more than 100 Labour MPs that could rebel against the party. So the party says, actually, we want an election, but if that vote goes to Parliament, the Labour MPs vote against it. Why? Because they fear that in a general election, before Brexit is sorted, they could lose their seats to Conservative or Brexit Party candidates, especially for those seats that are in pro-Brexit constituencies. So there's a huge amount of calculus taking place, political calculus, in UK Parliament. And my bet would be that if Boris Johnson gets the response from the EU, you get the January 31st extension, he may actually say to Parliament, look, you can accept my accelerated timetable, or you can have an election, but you have to vote for one or the other. And that will essentially force the Labour Party MPs that are on the fence to decide which way they want to go. My hunch is they'd rather get Brexit over the line, because then in a general election, Labour can campaign on the NHS, on welfare, the rest of it.
They want to, the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn does not like to see the world through the Brexit lens. They want to talk about other things, as you say. Rebecca Long-Bailey, though, to your point, saying this morning that the opposition would vote for a general election once the EU has given an extension to Brexit. But I hear what you're saying about how that might not be all of the Labour Party. She's, of course, the business spokeswoman, so front bench of the Labour Party. Where do we go on UK assets then, with that as the backstory, Callum? I mean, we've seen some of the tension coming out of the pound of late, where we'd seen a lot of tension price in for the end of October, by which I mean volatility price in for the end of October. Now we don't see that, as if the timescales are shifting. I suppose as soon as we get an election date or a new timetable, that's when options markets will move their thinking.
That's right, and I think that the uncertainty that we face is mostly about timing now, rather than what the outcome of Brexit will be. The two big developments are that, first, Boris Johnson has a deal and the Eurosceptic wing of his party are behind him, which means that in an election, he probably campaigns on an orderly Brexit. Before he had the deal, markets worried that in an election campaign, a vote for Boris was a vote for a hard Brexit. That's off the table. The second thing is that Parliament has shown that it is willing to use the checks and balances necessary to stop a hard Brexit. So taking that logic forward, the hard Brexit risk is down. We reduced our hard Brexit risk from 35% to 10% earlier this week. And actually, the logic follows that Boris is probably going to do well in an election before or after Brexit, so the Corbyn risk is down. So for markets, the hard Brexit risk, the Corbyn risk, big worries for the last 3 years, those risks have come down. Now it's a question of, do we get an orderly Brexit before or after an election?
Does all of this free the economy to grow faster?
Not just yet. We need the Brexit clarity before the economy can enjoy a cyclical upturn, but the outlook for the UK is good on the back of a Brexit deal with Boris Johnson in number 10. If he gets a majority in an election, even better for markets, because he will cut taxes, he will deregulate, and that will be a big economic boost, with the caveat that we could still get the hard Brexit at the end of 2020. The withdrawal agreement doesn't have the provision anymore that it's Parliament that decides whether to extend the transitional deal. This is on government alone. So I think that if the negotiations between the UK and the EU got noisy in 2020, assuming we get the deal, then markets may begin to worry a bit more about hard Brexit towards the end of the year. That might impact the macro.
We'll see if one of the amendments that comes forwards in the days ahead, if we go back to talking about the withdrawal agreement bill, is around preventing no deal at the end of 2020, or giving Parliament at least a role in that, maybe power that the government would not want to give up, but something that perhaps Parliament would try to grab for itself. Callum, thank you very much. Callum Pickering, senior economist at Berenberg, taking us through the latest on Brexit and how the markets might respond then, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. Up next, we got Daybreak out of D.C. with Amy Morris and Karen Moscow. If you're listening on Sirius XM, you'll hear that. If you're listening on London, DAB, Digital Radio, you'll hear Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Francine Lacroix. This
is Bloomberg.
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and be unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
So you want to go to Manchester, but how? About time you invented your own form of transport. What are you thinking? A kind of seat on wheels? Great. With free Wi-Fi, fancy food and some tiny bottles of wine? Yeah. And this invention, it goes at 125 miles an hour with toilets? You mad genius. What is this totally original creation of yours? Oh, wait. You're going to kick yourself when you realise. Virgin Trains, proudly serving you for 22 years. Free Wi-Fi available across 88% of all journeys, excludes voyages.
Hello? This is Dustin. I found something. Is anybody there?
We hear you, Dustin. With Sky Q, you can easily catch up on epic Netflix shows like Stranger Things, and then watch award-winning Sky originals like Chernobyl. Get Sky and Netflix all in one place on Sky Q for one surprisingly low price. Just £25 a month. Visit sky.com and join today. Offer ends November 14th. 18-month minimum terms. Prices may change during contract. Requires Sky Q box connected to broadband. Set up from £20. Further terms apply.
Financial capital of the world. 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Thursday, October 24th, 2019. Coming up this hour.
Tesla shares soar after the electric car maker posts a surprise profit.
Amazon leads almost 50 companies reporting earnings today.
It's the end of an era as Mario Draghi makes his final ECB policy decision.
And the EU keeps Boris Johnson waiting over the length of a Brexit extension.
Republican House members storm a secure room and disrupt the Democrats' impeachment inquiry, plus lights out again in California. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. Another win for the Washington Nationals. They lead Houston in the World Series 2-0. Knicks and Nets both lost their season opener.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Amy Morris. Bloomberg Daybreak brought to you by Innovalon, a leading provider of cloud-based platforms empowering data-driven healthcare for insurance companies, physicians, pharmacy, and pharmaceutical companies. Innovalon, data has a story to tell. Innovalon gives it a voice.
And futures are higher this morning. It's 5:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 2.5 points. Dow futures up 21. NASDAQ futures up 29. The DAX in Germany's up 0.6%. CAC in Paris up 0.5%. FTSE 100 up 0.7%. Nikkei 225 in Japan gained 0.6%, and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong jumped 0.9%. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 1.75%. Yield on the 2-year 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil down 0.9% or 48 cents at $55.49 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.2%, down $3.20 at $14.9250 an ounce. The euro 1.1133 against the dollar. The yen 108.68. Amy.
And we begin with earnings. We see Tesla shares surging more than 17% this morning. The electric car maker reined in expenses and posted its first profit in almost a year. Let's get more from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
The maker of the Model 3 sedan earned $1.86 a share in the third quarter, beating analysts' average estimate for a 24-cent loss. CEO Elon Musk has announced at least 3 rounds of job cuts since last year and restructured business units to counter slowing sales of its higher-margin models. Revenue fell to $6.3 billion in the third quarter, missing analysts' estimates and down from $6.8 billion a year ago. Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Charlie, thank you. A different story this morning for Ford investors. The stock fell 2.5% in late trading. The automaker cut its full-year forecast by $500 million. Higher warranty costs, elevated incentive spending in North America, and lower China sales prompted Ford to slash its outlook for 2019 earnings before interest and taxes to a range between $6.5 billion and $7 billion.
Microsoft reported quarterly sales and profit that were better than estimated. The company got a boost from demand for its Azure cloud computing programs. Meanwhile, revenue from the subscription-based Office 365 for corporate customers rose 25%. Shares are up almost 1% this morning.
And the earnings barrage continues today with almost 50 companies in the S&P 500 reporting, and heading the list, 3M, Amazon, Intel, and Twitter. Let's get a Twitter preview from Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger.
Bloomberg Intelligence says Twitter's platform cleanup and other initiatives started paying off in the second quarter, and analysts say investors will want to hear more today about the short messaging service's efforts to reduce harmful activity and what it is doing to make it easier for users to find new content. Forecasts are for Twitter to post an adjusted profit of 20 cents a share on revenue topping $875 million. Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, thank you, Jeff. And let's take a quick look at some key earnings in Europe this morning. Nokia shares down 21%. The Finnish equipment maker has lowered its earnings guidance for the year and next year. It's also halting dividend payments. Royal Bank of Scotland's profit in the third quarter has been wiped out by a more than $1 billion charge tied to a long-running mis-selling insurance scandal. That stock is down more than 2%. Shares of AstraZeneca are up more than 3%. The company raised its 2019 sales outlook again.
Boris Johnson is waiting on the European Union's verdict on whether to grant the UK a third Brexit extension. As Bloomberg UK government reporter Alex Morales reports, EU ambassadors agreed they should accept that request, but couldn't settle on how long Britain will get.
The French are pushing for a tight deadline of November the 15th, while many other countries want to give the UK the 3 months it has asked for. Ambassadors resolved to reach a decision when they meet again on Friday. A tight deadline might help Johnson push his deal through Parliament as he wins around MPs who are fearful of the alternative of a no-deal Brexit. If a long extension is granted, it opens up the chances of an early general election, which Johnson says he wants, and the opposition Labour Party has said it'll allow, but only once a no-deal Brexit on October the 31st is ruled out. In London, Alex Morales, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Alex, thank you. And it is the end of an era. Mario Draghi making his final ECB policy decision later this morning. Bloomberg's Ewan Potts joining us now with the latest. Ewan.
Good morning, Amy and Karen. Whatever it takes, Mario Draghi's most famous words as president of the European Central Bank. He pledged and delivered intervention to stop the breakup of the Eurozone. But as he heads into his final meeting today, he faces weak inflation and a slowdown in the region's already tepid growth. As Christine Lagarde gets ready to take over, he also leaves behind a governing council deeply divided over the need for looser monetary policy. In London, I'm Ewan Potts, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Ewan, thank you. It is a busy morning for policy decisions. The Swedish central bank left rates unchanged, but says the interest rate will most probably be raised in December to 0%. Norway's central bank also kept rates unchanged, while Indonesia's central bank cut its key interest rate for a fourth straight month.
And here in the U.S. later this morning, research firm Market issues its manufacturing PMI for October. Economists anticipate modest growth. Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice reports.
In September, the Market Factory Index rose to 51.1, the highest since April. There are some faint signals manufacturing gained ground this month. Regional Federal Reserve data from New York, Philadelphia, and Richmond scored positive October readings after national output faltered in September. Additionally, auto industry data point to increased September vehicle sales. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Vinny, thank you. And SoftBank will seek a U.S. national security review of its WeWork bailout. Bloomberg's learned that in the coming weeks, SoftBank will file with the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. And straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news, and this is Bloomberg.
It's 5:07 on Wall Street. We want to bring in Michael Barr with more on what's going on in the world. Michael.
Thank you very much, Amy. A group of Republicans disrupted a hearing of the Democrats' impeachment inquiry by storming into a secure room at the Capitol in a protest carried out with blessing of President Donald Trump. Representative Mo Brooks of Alabama was among the 24 GOP House members.
By golly, if they're going to do it in public. Don't hide it from the American people. Show your face where we can all see the travesty that you are trying to foist on America.
California Democrat Eric Swalwell was in the room, and the Republican House members stormed in.
We're not going to let it deter us. We move forward. The chairman is determined to get this done fairly, but also swiftly. And they can continue the hijinks, but they're just delaying the inevitable, which is this president is going to be held accountable.
The deposition with Defense Department official Laura Cooper eventually began about 5 hours behind schedule. Syrian state media and a war monitoring group say a car bombing wounded several people in a town taken by Turkey-backed rebels from Kurdish fighters during Ankara's invasion this month into northeastern Syria. It comes as the U.S. says it is closely monitoring the scene in Syria. Bloomberg's Bob Moon reports.
As the president lifts sanctions on Turkey, his own special envoy for Syria, James Jeffrey, tells Congress Turkey's incursion is a tragedy and that Ankara-backed forces are likely behind several war crimes.
We haven't seen any widespread ethnic cleansing in that area since the Turks have come in. Many people fled because they're very concerned about these Turkish-supported Syrian opposition forces, as are we. We've seen several incidents which we consider war crimes.
President Trump says he's open to meeting with President Erdogan, and that could happen in the very near future. Bob Moon, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Parts of Northern California have gone dark in the first stage of a mass blackout that could eventually leave more than 1 million people across the state without power. PG&E has cut service to customers in counties near Sacramento and Napa Valley in an attempt to keep its power lines from sparking wildfires amid high winds. The officer who was fired in the 2014 chokehold death of Eric Garner is suing the NYPD and the police commissioner to be reinstated. Daniel Pantaleo's lawyer argued that his client's termination following an administrative trial was arbitrary and capricious. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Amy.
All right, thank you, Michael. It is 5:10 on Wall Street. It's time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashauer.
Amy, to think the Washington Nationals were known as the team that could never win a postseason series, now they never seem to lose a single game, looking to make it 8 wins in a row, 2 straight World Series wins in Houston. The Nats and Astros were 2-2 seventh inning.
Kerr has never had a postseason home run. Here's the 1-0. Swinging a long drive, left field. He's got one now. Kurt Suzuki gives the Nationals the lead. That one above the Crawford boxes. Kurt Suzuki's first career postseason home run, and the Nationals lead the Astros 3-2 here in the 7th inning.
Nationals radio the call. That began an onslaught. 5 more runs in the 7th, 3 in the 8th, another in the 9th. Washington won game 2, 12-3. Now heading home. 2 wins from the first championship in franchise history. Their 2 aces, Max Scherzer, and then last night Steven Strasburg, beat the 2 Houston aces, Garrett Cole, and last night Justin Verlander. Game 3 tomorrow night will be the first World Series game in D.C. since 1933. Game 1 of 82 for the Knicks and Nets. Both lost. The Knicks in San Antonio 120-111. Knicks had a 1-point lead going to the fourth quarter. Marcus Morris led them 26 points. The rookie R.J. Barrett looked good. He scored 21. No NBA player has ever had a debut for a team like Kyrie Irving had in Brooklyn. He poured in 50 points but missed a game-winning shot at the end of overtime. The Nets lost to Minnesota 127-126. Knicks and Nets face off tomorrow at the Barclays Center. Redskins and Vikings kick off NFL Week 8 tonight in Minnesota. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashauer. Amy?
All right, thank you, John. It is the latest fight by female athletes worldwide for greater equality with men. Players in the Spanish Women's Soccer League have decided to go on strike after failing to reach a deal with clubs over working hours and minimum wages. The move by Spanish women came a few months after U.S. soccer players used the World Cup in France to bring increased attention to the women's fight for equal pay. Checking the futures on Wall Street, S&P is up 2.25, Dow up 19. Much more still to come on Bloomberg Daybreak. This is Bloomberg.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Directors of companies are responsible to boards.
Let's begin with the IPO that may not be for a long, long time.
Politicians are mindful of voters.
Are those gains all going to the elite?
Scholars pay attention to data.
Does it spread beyond manufacturing?
And nearly everyone at the top of these professions listens to Bloomberg Surveillance.
Everybody listens when I'm on your show.
Tom Keene and Jonathan Ferro. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Are you looking for senior care for your mom or dad but don't know where to start? Hi, I'm Joan London with The Place for Mom. Nobody knows your parent or loved one better than you, and nobody knows senior living better than the experts at A Place for Mom. It's a free service, and we've helped thousands of families find the right place for their mom or dad. There's a place for answers, a place for mom. Call today.
Call A Place for Mom at 1-800-391-1755. That's 1-800-391-1755.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Rishad Salamat.
Let's get analysis of what we can expect from Indian equities. Sayan Mukherjee is Nomura, head of India Equity Research. Quite a state at the moment, the economy there in India. And equities are essentially holding their own. Question is, why? And where do they go next?
Yeah, it's been quite a challenging time as far as the economy is concerned. The economic growth has surprised everyone on the downside. Consistently over the last 4 quarters, the analyst expectations have not been met. And as we look at some of the high-frequency data, we don't see a revival immediately. So this quarter, the quarter ending September, can also record a weak data. So I think there are economic growth challenges in the near term. However, I think there has been a policy response. The government has reacted, and it appears that growth is a priority there. As you know, some steps have been taken, like corporate tax rate cuts. we could see more monetary stimulus going forward. And importantly, some of the other macro parameters which are important for India, for instance, crude oil and commodities are behaving well.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. European stocks and U.S. stock index futures are rising alongside their European peers after a raft of upbeat corporate earnings results helped investors shrug off more signs that global growth is losing momentum. We get more from Bloomberg's Juliet Sally in Singapore. Good morning, Juliet.
Good morning, Karen. The Kospi gained on the back of SK Hynix's earnings, although sentiment in Seoul was dented by sluggish economic growth, GDP increasing 0.4% from the previous quarter, on track for the smallest expansion since the financial crisis. Singapore stocks got a boost following Bloomberg's interview with the central bank chief, who indicated the slowdown in the Lion City may be nearing the end. Indonesian stocks headed for their longest run of advances since 1995, as the nation's currency and bonds also climbed. OMBET's President Joko Widodo will pursue tougher economic reforms in his second term. And in Hong Kong, Tencent traded below the key support level of 320 Hong Kong dollars intraday, despite an otherwise upbeat market. Analysts saying the fall through that floor means the tech giant's accelerating sell-off could be about to get a whole lot worse. In Singapore, I'm Juliet Sali, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Juliet, thank you. And S&P futures again higher, up 2.5 points. Dow futures up 20. NASDAQ futures up 29. The DAX in Germany's up 0.5%. 10-year Treasury up 3/32, yield 1.75%. Yield on the 2-year 1.57%. NYMEX crude oil's down 0.5% or 26 cents at 55.71 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.25% or $3.80 at 14.91.80 an ounce. The euro 1.1130 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.70. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Karen. Republicans brought the Democrats' impeachment inquiry to a halt as around 24 GOP House members stormed into a closed-door deposition. The GOP maneuver delayed a deposition with senior Defense Department official Laura Cooper until mid-afternoon, about 5 hours behind schedule. People across Northern California could be without power for the second time in 2 weeks today. Utility companies say they shut off the power, and it's aimed at preventing wildfires caused by downed power lines. In baseball, the Nationals now lead the Astros 2-0 in the World Series. Last night, Washington won 12-3 in Houston. In the NBA, the Nets and Knicks lost their season openers. The Celtics also lost. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Amy.
All right, thank you, Michael. It is 5:20 on Wall Street. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. This is Bloomberg Daybreak. And even as the wait continues for a Brexit resolution, interest rate markets dialing back expectations for wider fluctuations now that no deal risks appear to, for the most part, evaporated. We are joined now by Derek Halpenny, MUFG, European Head of Global Markets Research. Derek, I want to thank you for taking the time with us this morning.
Hi, Amy. Pleasure to talk to you.
Now, we know Prime Minister Johnson's won backing in Parliament for the agreement. This is the one that he negotiated with the EU. The timing of all this, though, still very much up in the air. How does this cloud the outlook for the markets?
It has certainly added a fresh element of uncertainty after the euphoria of the deal being reached. We're in kind of wait-and-see mode. You know, we're essentially waiting for the formal response from the EU to the letter requesting an extension to the 31st of January that Boris Johnson was forced to write on Saturday. We're expecting that to come back with an acknowledgement that there can be an extension until the 31st of January. There is some speculation that Macron is kind of fighting for a much shorter extension, but I think ultimately the extension will be granted until the 31st of January. January, and then it comes down to a decision from Boris Johnson. Do I push on trying to legislate through a parliament where I have no effective majority, or do I try and seek a general election, which of course he needs a 2/3 majority to reach, and therefore he needs the support of the Labour Party in which to grant that request for a general election. So a lot of things have to happen, but I would guess once the formal request from the EU is granted, then we should get some movement and some clarity in terms of whether it's a general election or whether it's a further push on the legislation in Parliament.
I want to ask you a question about all of that preparation and all of that uncertainty, because you've got all of these firms that have really buckled up for Brexit. They've been spending millions of dollars on stockpiling, relocating, contingency plans, really just trying to plan ahead for the unknown. How does that, first of all, factor into this global uncertainty? And I wonder if it's also sort of created its own little subculture industry, a Brexit prep industry.
Yeah, absolutely. One big change that has taken place under the Boris Johnson administration is that there has been a Chancellor, Sajid Javid, who is fully supportive of preparation for potentially no-deal Brexit. So therefore, money has been made available and action has been taken in order to prepare much more better for the potential risks that lie ahead. But, that's a small portion relative to the bigger macro uncertainty that is very evident and has been for some time in, for example, business investment figures, which have basically flatlined since the Brexit referendum. And now in more recent months, we're beginning to see some evidence in the household sector of it seeping through into the much more bigger part of the UK economy. So certainly if the uncertainty is to drag into 2020 and even beyond January 31st, there is an increasing negative impact that is beginning to become more evident in the data here in the UK.
Derek, we only have about a minute to go. I've got about 400 more questions for you, but I do want to shift gears and talk about Mario Draghi. This will be the last ECB meeting for Mr. Draghi. How does all of this Brexit uncertainty factor into all of that?
I would say it's there, and it'll obviously be brought up today in his last meeting. But, we just had the PMI figures this morning from Germany and the other key core European countries. And, they've stabilized, but they're still disappointing. And, I think one of the themes going forward is going to be, look, monetary policy has done all it can. What else can we do? And there's going to be increasing pressure on fiscal stimulus in countries where stimulus can be afforded, and that clearly can be afforded in a country like Germany, which is running a budget surplus. So that's the type focus that is going to be in place with Christine Lagarde when she takes over.
And we have so many more questions, but we have to leave it there. Derek Halpenny, MUFG, European Head of Global Markets Research. I want to thank you for taking the time with us. We've got Dow futures up 12, S&P futures up 175, NASDAQ futures up 26. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stock futures are little changed to higher as investors await another round of earnings today. We hear from lots of big companies, including Comcast, Amazon, Southwest and American Airlines, 3M and Visa. Twitter also reports results. Today we're also watching for monthly reports on durable goods orders, new home sales, and a look at U.S. manufacturing, along with weekly data on jobless claims. Stocks rose yesterday as investors assess the latest batch of earnings results. Boeing helped the Dow, which rose 46 points or almost 0.2% to 26,834. The S&P 500 rose 9 or 0.3% to 3,005, and the Nasdaq jumped 16 or 0.2%, closing at 8120. Nasdaq futures are up 30 points. S&P futures are up 3, Dow futures up 20. NYMEX crude oil is down about 0.9% at $55.47 a barrel. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the...
We just got back from a beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything. Or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
You're in charge of hiring, and Indeed has solutions, like online skills tests, which let a candidate show that they are the right hire. And we give you this toy monkey, who will bang its cymbals when the right CV appears on your desktop. Okay, there is no monkey. There is no monkey. But there are online skills tests.
See why more than 250,000 companies in the UK use Indeed for hiring. Visit Indeed.com/try today to try skills tests for free today. Terms and conditions apply.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
With the new Halifax Family Boost mortgage, children can get help to buy their first home, and mum and dad earn interest on their savings. Everyone's a winner. The new Halifax Family Boost mortgage. Halifax makes it happen.
Your home and savings could be at risk if mortgage repayments are not maintained. Only available in England and Wales. One applicant must hold a Halifax Reward or Ultimate Reward current account. Conditions and exclusions apply.
Hey, it's me again, the TV. Since my family gave me Now TV, there's no more endlessly searching for something they want to watch, because now I don't do filler TV, just killer TV. If my family want movies, I've got blockbusters. Comedy, coming up, way better than the dad jokes in this house. Or how about dramas? OMG, I've got Chernobyl. Now they can watch whatever they're in the mood for.
What's your TV got for you tonight? Now TV. 18 plus month passes auto renew. Terms apply.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
It's 5:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Amy Morris.
And I'm Karen Moscow. We are just about 4 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. U.S. futures are higher this morning as investors await another batch of earnings. Tesla is leading the gain. Shares are up more than 17% after the electric car maker posted a surprise profit. Ed Ludlow has more from the Bloomberg 960 and 103.7 newsroom in San Francisco.
Almost nobody saw it coming, but cost cuts at Tesla's Fremont plant and deferred revenue from autopilot delivered a boost for margins and ultimately a profit. Tesla did make record deliveries in the third quarter, but revenue dropped to $6.3 billion. In fact, it was the first year-on-year revenue decline since 2012. On the call, CEO Elon Musk said the Shanghai Gigafactory is ahead of schedule and is forecasting that the upcoming Model Y SUV is going to outsell all of the other Tesla models combined. In San Francisco, Ed Ludlow, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Thank you, Ed. Shares of Microsoft are up almost 1%. Sales and profit topped analysts' estimates.
eBay shares are down more than 6.5%. The company gave a revenue forecast that fell short of analyst estimates.
Nokia shares are down 21%. The Finnish company cut its outlook and suspended the dividend.
46 companies in the S&P 500 are scheduled to report earnings today, headed by Amazon. We get a preview from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
The analyst survey by Bloomberg see the online retailer reporting adjusted earnings per share of $7.54 on revenue of $68.69 billion. Analysts at Bloomberg Intelligence say Amazon's move to one-day shipping will likely boost third-quarter sales as a Prime Day record and incremental sales counter an international slowdown. Wall Street will also be keeping an eye on Amazon Web Services, where analysts say growth of over 40% will be challenging given the larger revenue base. 53 analysts say the stock is a buy, 2 say it's a hold, none say it's a sell. Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Thank you, Charlie. The European Union is keeping Boris Johnson waiting. EU ambassadors agree that the British Prime Minister should get more time to work out a Brexit deal, but they can't agree on how much.
And the ECB announces its monetary policy decision after the final meeting of President Mario Draghi's term. No policy change is expected. Now let's get you up to date on how stocks are faring. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures up 2 points, Dow futures up 16, NASDAQ futures up 28. The 10-year Treasury up 1/32, yield 1.76%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.57%. Straight ahead, we have the latest world and national news. And this is Bloomberg.
It's 5:33 on Wall Street. Let's bring in Michael Barr with more on what's going on in the world. Michael.
Thank you very much, Amy. A closed-door deposition in the impeachment inquiry went off the rails yesterday after about 24 Republican House members stormed the secure room it was being held in. The Republicans were protesting the Democrat-led impeachment process, saying it was unfair to them and the president. GOP Representative Buddy Carter.
This needs to stop. It needs to stop right now. We need open government. This is the United States of America.
The deposition with Defense Department official Laura Cooper eventually began after a 5-hour delay. Attorneys for President Trump argued to block a subpoena issued by New York State prosecutors for the president's tax returns. In their appeal, the president's lawyers argued that Trump, while he's in office, cannot be subjected to any part of a local criminal proceeding. The House approved legislation to better protect the country's elections from foreign interference. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has the story.
The third major bill the Democratic-controlled chambers passed this year addressing problems that arose in the 2016 election, SHIELD Act, would require the candidates and political committees notify the FBI and other authorities if a foreign power offers campaign help. It also tightens restrictions on campaign spending by foreign nationals and requires more transparency in political ads on social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter. The White House has threatened to veto the bill if it reaches the president's desk, saying it is redundant, overly broad, and unenforceable. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Firefighters in Northern California are battling high winds and dry conditions as they try to bring the Kincaid fire in Sonoma County under control. The fire has prompted evacuations. More than 1 million people in Northern California could be without power after PG&E shut off electricity to prevent wildfires caused by downed power lines. PG&E Chief Meteorologist Scott Strenfel says they're keeping a close eye on a wind event this weekend.
Some of the forecast models that we look at, such as the European model, suggest that this could be the strongest wind event of the season, unfortunately, and potentially stronger than the October 9th through 11th PSPS event.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Amy?
All right, thank you, Michael. It is 5:36 on Wall Street. It is time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. Here's John Stashower.
Amy, when the Capitals recently won the Stanley Cup, it ended 26 years without a title in D.C. In fact, none of their 4 major teams had reached a final or semifinal round, but the Caps won the Cup. The WNBA team in D.C. just won a championship, and now the Nationals in very good shape for capturing the World Series. A 12-3 win in Houston for a 2-0 series lead. This game was 2-2 in the seventh inning. Kurt Suzuki homered off Justin Verlander of the Nats, tacked on 9 more runs over their last 3 at-bats. Steven Strasburg beat Verlander, who's 0-5 in his career in the World Series. What a run the Nats are on going back to the regular season. They've won 18 of the last 20, 8 straight in the postseason, 5 on the road. Game 3 is tomorrow night in D.C. The last 2 teams to lose the first 2 World Series games at home and still win the series, the 96 Yankees and the 86 Mets. As the Mets continue to look for a new manager, the Cubs have their man David Ross. He's taken the Aaron Boone route, no managerial experience, but he was an ESPN broadcaster. Ross was on the Cubs World Series winning team in 2016. In Brooklyn, Kyrie Irving's Nets debut, all he did was score 50 points, most ever for anyone playing for a team for the first time. But Kyrie and the Nets lost in overtime to Minnesota, 127-126.
You know, none of that stuff matters unless you get a win. You know, the race is to get as many wins as you can in the 82-game span and, you know, put yourself in position down the stretch. So, like I said, we got 81 more to go. And, you know, we just take it day by day.
The Knicks dropped their opener in San Antonio 120-111. Marcus Morris scored 26 and Julius Randle 25 in the loss. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Amy?
All right, thank you, John. It is 5:37 on Wall Street, and the latest edition of Bloomberg Business Week is on newsstands now. This week's special issue is about what to expect in the year to come. Investors are paying very close attention to the 2020 presidential election. Mike Regan wrote the story for Bloomberg Business Week.
Now they have to sort of have a sideline as a political scientist and kind of gauge where the tea leaves in the politics world are headed.
And you can read more about this and other stories in this week's edition of Bloomberg Business Week on newsstands now and online at businessweek.com. Terminal customers can subscribe to the magazine at MAG Go and listen to Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly weekdays at 2 p.m. Wall Street time right here on Bloomberg Radio. It's 5:38 on Wall Street. Time now for the Tri-State Business Report. For that, we're joined live by Bloomberg's Ed Corey. Ed.
Morning, Amy. Luxury home listings in the Hamptons jumped to a record in the third quarter. The supply of 1,100 high-end homes for sale at the end of September was the largest since 2011. The Hamptons have fallen victim to the same concerns over high carrying costs and declining property values that are depressing sales in Manhattan. Well, the City University of New York has reached a tentative contract agreement with its union. It boosts pay for adjunct staff significantly. The 5-year deal provides for wage gains and restructures the workload of adjuncts to enable them to devote more time to students. Well, the state of New Jersey is being sued over a new law that requires credit bureaus to make credit reports available in Spanish and 10 additional languages. NJ.com reports the Consumer Data Industry Association filed a suit in federal court on behalf of Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. That's your Bloomberg Tri-State Business Report. I'm Ed Corey. Amy?
All right, thank you.